Okay, I'm going to call the Corporate Services Committee meeting to order. Just a couple minutes late. We have a fairly light public agenda, but we've got a number of in-camera items, so we'll work through them as efficiently as possible. I'll start by reading the following statement. The City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternative formats and communication supports for council, standing and advisory committee meetings and information upon request. To make a request for any city service, please contact accessibility@london.ca or 519-661-2489, extension 2425. Disclosures of pecuniary interest from the committee. I have one on item 5.1, which is appointment to the London Hydro Board of Directors. One of the original candidates has a direct role in my performance appraisal at my employer, Western University, so I won't be participating on that. And Deputy Mayor Helmer has offered to chair the meeting during that portion, so I'll hand it over to him at the appropriate time. Seeing no other disclosures, we have 4 consent items. Would anybody like any of them dealt with separately? Mayor Holder.
Thank you, Chair. 2.4, I just have a couple of questions on it, please.
Okay, we'll do 2.4 separate. Anybody else want to pull anything? Otherwise, I could look for a mover and a seconder for 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. Councillor Hillier, seconded by Mayor Holder. Discussion on those 3 items, which is the council policy on the use of corporate resources for election purposes, the website redesign and implementation, and the 2018 annual reporting of lease financing arrangements. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, we can open that for voting. It's been moved and seconded.
Closing the vote, the motion's passed 4-0.
Item 2.4, I'll put that on the floor for discussion. Mayor Holder, you said you had a few questions. Go ahead.
Thanks very much. A couple of questions as it relates to this particular property, and maybe perhaps just for my background benefit, just general information. This is an owned property by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. It looks like it was purchased back in 1988. I do not know if the tenants, perhaps I could ask, if the tenants of this property, were they this may be germane, were they the folks that originally sold it to the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority? Does anyone know that?
Maybe I'll look to Mr. Warner, I think.
Through the chair, no, they were not the sellers of the property.
Thank you, Chair. Through. I know that's not uncommon, so I appreciate the clarity around that. But I look at this and I'm trying to understand, firstly, why the property was purchased at all, and secondly, why, and this may be just part of the legalistics associated with the legalities associated with the where it's located, why it was purchased through the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, and we ultimately have responsibility for it, why we wouldn't have just simply purchased it. So perhaps through you, Chair, clarity around why we bought it at all. Did it ultimately serve a purpose, its purchase? Often that's the case. And why don't I just start with that, if it served its purpose and what the intent was in buying it, please.
Mr. Warner.
Through the chair, there was a floodplain property acquisition program that was implemented through the province of Ontario, started back in the 1965 era and carried through into the 80s. The city participated with the province at a 50% contribution towards floodplain acquisition. Many of the properties were acquired for the title of the City of London, some of which were acquired through the title of the Upper Thames, and there's an agreement, a long-standing agreement between the Upper Thames and the city with regards to the management of those lands. So the management of those lands, including the ongoing maintenance, falls with the city through that agreement.
So Chair, through you again. So purchased through the city, some cost sharing with the province. I understand that. You're too young, Mr. Warner, but I would, through you, Chair, I'm just trying to understand what the logic was for this particular property, and do you think it served a purpose, the purchase and now ultimately the devolution of this property? I think the devolution may serve a purpose. I'm just not sure what the intent was behind it, and I'd appreciate clarity, please.
Mr. Warner.
Yeah, through the chair, as I understand, so that's for floodplain protection. These are properties that, in today's standards, wouldn't be permitted to be developed, as they are potentially hazardous. The safety of the individuals and the actual structures could be impacted by the worst case scenario if there was flooding to the maximum 100 or 200 regulatory levels. So essentially through those regulatory, the framework of the Upper Thames and through the city's official plan, this area of these properties are being protected as floodplain lands.
So again, some confusion. So we're being mindful to purchase the property to ensure safety, but it was okay to rent it out to tenants. Can you help clarify that, please, through you, Chair?
Yep, so these were properties that became available through that program. They were within the floodplain. There's different levels of severity within the floodplain. These have been managed. There hasn't been any flood risks. There hasn't been any issues. However, at this property now, the buildings are at the end of their economic life. There would be extended substantial cost to keep maintaining them into the future, as well as the resources with regards to tenancies. The tenants have decided that they're now moving on to other property, and so the decision or the recommendation of staff, as well as with the support of the Upper Thames, is that to clear the buildings of the floodplain and to just preserve it as floodplain open space area.
So then it begs the question, I'll accept that it doesn't seem like it was worth us making the place any more habitable, although it was habitable, so it was good enough until the tenants chose to leave, and that's certainly their business. How many properties are we talking about that the Upper Thames Conservation Authority has within their bailiwick, within the ownership arrangement like this, please?
Through the chair, there's dozens and dozens of properties that the Upper Thames owns. There's very few that actually still have houses that are being managed by the city. Approximately 12 houses that are still being managed that are in similar types of circumstances.
Okay, Chair, I understand the answer. I'm going to give some additional thought. I may bring this back forward through you appropriately just for reconsideration at some stage, because I'm trying to understand the role of the Upper Thames in the acquisition of properties for this purpose. And here's one where it seems that we purchased it because there was potential of a risk, but it wasn't risky enough such that a tenant didn't move in. And now we're going to demolish it, presumably because the tenants moved out and it's not worth the repair. But it just begs the question to me of the practical role of the Upper Thames in this. I'm just trying to understand that a little bit better. So I will bring it back at an appropriate time for some further questions. But I thank Mr. Warner through you for his answers on this.
Okay, thank you. So I look to see if there's a mover and a seconder for the staff recommendation. Moved by Deputy Mayor Helmer, seconded by Councillor Hillier. Any other discussion? Okay, I'll open that for voting.
Closing the vote, the motion's passed 4-0.
Okay, there's no scheduled items. There's no items for direction. There's a deferred matter and additional business, 5.1, appointment to the London Hydro Board of Directors. I'm going to hand the chair over to Deputy Mayor Helmer for this portion.
Thank you. Committee members, we have an interesting situation here where the candidate who was recommended by council has withdrawn. So the committee had done interviews, made a recommendation to council, and before it actually got to council, the person indicated they were withdrawing their candidacy, and so we still have a vacancy and we still have applicants. We also have an interesting situation, which is I believe Councillor Hillier was the only person who's here today who was actually in the interviews.
Yes.
So I wonder, committee, how you'd like to proceed. I'm sure that London Hydro is keen to have their vacancy filled, but at the same time, I think we want to make a thoughtful decision. The chair obviously has declared a conflict in all these situations, but how would you like to proceed?
Thank you, through you, Chair. You'll recall when this issue with respect to the London Hydro Board came up, London Hydro had made a recommendation at that time of a specific individual. I think we thoughtfully considered that, and as council, the decision was made to go through the interview process. And then just to carry it through to its logical conclusion, we recommended an individual who ultimately by virtue of commitments withdrew, and that left us with 3 other candidates. And I'm quite comfortable making a recommendation based on London Hydro, because I think that having reviewed those resumes, not having sat through the interviews, but having reviewed the information we'd received, I'm quite prepared, if it's the will of this committee, to make a recommendation. I just want to know if they're comfortable. If I might just simply proceed and recommend that Andy Rymack, who was recommended by the Hydro Board, be considered the candidate. He's connected with the University of Western Ontario as VP Provost, I believe. So that would be, I would move that.
The mayor has suggested appointing Mr. Rymack. Is there a seconder for that? Okay, so that's been seconded. Discussion on that motion. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just to finish the thought on that as well, and no disrespect to any of the candidates, but I'm mindful, Chair, of what you just said in terms of the need to proceed. And I know that specifically they were looking for someone with the type of technical background that the prior candidate and Mr. Rymack both enjoy. And I felt, and I feel that that he would be an absolutely thoughtful choice for Hydro to allow them to get on with their business. I think to delay this further would not serve London Hydro, nor the candidates who are waiting for some determination on this. So thanks for allowing me to provide that input.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, let's open the vote on that.
Closing the vote, the motion's passed, 3 with 1 recuse.
Turn the chair back over to Councillor Morgan.
Thank you. So that exhausts the public portion of the agenda. We have 7 reasons to go in camera. Deputy Mayor Helmer.
I just wanted to add an additional reason. I believe the clerk has the language, and I wonder if she might be able to read it out.
Go ahead.
Thank you. The additional reason will be a matter pertaining to the proposed or pending disposition or acquisition of land by the municipality, including communications necessary for that purpose, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, commercial and financial information that belongs to the municipality and has a monetary value or potential monetary value, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality.
Okay, so we have 7 reasons plus the additional one asked for just now. I'll need a mover and a seconder for all that. Moved by Mayor Holder, seconded by Councillor Hillier. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we can open that for voting.
Closing the vote, and that motion is passed 4-0.
Okay, so we're going to move to the committee room. There is no more public agenda, so we'll open the door, see if anybody wants to come in and watch the reporting out in the adjournment. And we'll do that from the committee room.